take the settlement. I will now take the settlement of the Clyde Valley Learning Development Joint Committee held on the 12th of February 2024. The following members are all present: Councillors Andrew Anderson, Anne McTaggart, Francesca Brennan, Angela Campbell and Lindsay Hamilton. Thank you, and I'll pass you back to the convener for today's business.
Thanks very much, Stuart. We will start with any declarations of interest. None. Perfect. The minutes of the previous meeting, which are on pages 5 to 8. I will move the minutes as a correct record, and can I have a seconder, please?
I can second.
Thanks, Francesca. Do you agree and approve the minutes as a correct record? Yep. Lots of nods. Perfect. Thank you very much. Moving on to agenda item number 3, which is revenue budget monitoring for the Clyde Valley and Learning Development Joint Committee, which are pages 9 to 12. And can I ask Aaron to take this? Thanks, Aaron.
Thanks, convener. And good afternoon, everyone. As it tends to be, the finance report is a pretty quick one to run through, but I'll just take you through at a high level. The budget for the year is still £100,000 for spend and £100,000 for income, so a net zero budget. The spend covers the management fee, some training costs, the external audit fee and a small budget for supplies and services. And the income budget is made up of the member contributions and some income that we recharge for training costs. On Appendix A, you'll note that there is a net spend of £3,000 and a net budget of £3,000, so there's no variance at period 10. I'm happy to take any questions on the position, but failing that, I'd like to ask the Joint Committee to note the contents of the report.
Thanks, Aaron. Is there any comments or questions from the members? Nope, no bother. So I will move the report and ask it to be seconded. Yep, agreed. Perfect, thank you. Moving on to agenda item number 4, the membership and funding for Clyde Valley Learning Development Project for 2024 to 25. This is pages 13 to 18 and it'll be presented by Jerry. Thank you.
Thank you, convener, and good afternoon, everyone. This is a standard report that we produce every year at this time, which gives the committee an update in the state of play with the membership across the different councils in the group. In the background section in paragraph 3, you'll see that this dates back to when we restructured the project in 2018. And at that point, we introduced the membership structure that are currently in place. And at that point, the key numbers to bear in mind were the minimum of 5 full members and a £59,000 income minimum from each year. Now that was a change from the original structure of 8 members and the full membership from the outset before we were at any kind of funding from within the group. That was when we started up. That has never proved to be a difficulty to us, and I have mentioned in the current position in section 4 that there continues to be a significant enthusiastic involvement in the group. However, we are now at the 5 council limit, and we are slightly just over the £59,000. That is the actual income number is safer than the number of councils on full membership. So with that, we've got no room for manoeuvre. In other words, the 5 is any change in that. If we go down from that position, we're duty bound to revisit the minute of agreement, and that would involve taking some significant decisions about the future of the project. So I think it's important for this committee to note that we are in that position. Indeed, it was quite challenging to get the responses from all the members this year. And it was really at the 11th hour that we were able to go with the paper that gave us the viability of the project for the coming year. So I think we should make every effort to look at the future of the project to make sure that we don't have that issue arising again. And I think it's worth noting that situation so that we shouldn't have any room for complacency. In terms of the paper itself, the details was provided at the time of writing. We still had one council to make a decision on that, and that was Eastern Bartonshire Council as a participating member. I can confirm now to the committee that has been confirmed. So we are back to where we were last year. We have the same number of 5 full members and 10 participating members, which brings the level of income up to 75,000. As previously stated in section 4.4, it was 72,000. So that's us back at the full grouping. So encouraging in the sense that there's a clear indication that other councils still wish to be part of the group and that they see the benefits of it. However, as I've said before, we still need to be very cautious about not getting complacent about the membership. So that's the kind of summary detail within the paper. The activity that goes on within the group indicates that there is a strong commitment to the group itself, and particularly in the section that relates to the ongoing importance of in-kind contributions, which is section 8 there in the underemployment implications. It's this activity that really demonstrates where the commitment lies, and I hope the papers that I'll be providing in the next items on the agenda will give a good indication of that kind of level of interest and commitment to the project. It gives a good sense of what it really means on the ground. But we must be very careful that we don't miss those great opportunities that are still continuing to be developed. So I'd ask the committee to note the recommendations in this report and ask them to approve the recommendations as outlined in section paragraph 2.
Thanks very much, Sherry, and that is good news that we're still in the same position as last year, but as you said, that it is important that we stay that way, so that's well put over. Is there any members got any comments or questions? No. So I'll move the report and ask for a seconder. Thanks, Francesca. They agree the report. Agreed. Agenda item number 5 is an update on the 2023-24 audit of Clyde Valley Learning Development Joint Committee. It's pages 19 to 20, and I'd like to welcome Carla along today from Audit Scotland to take this paper. Thanks, Carla.
Thanks, convener. Good afternoon, everyone. So our audit strategy letter can be found at page 19 of your pack, I believe. Our planning work for the 23-24 audit of the Joint Committee is underway, as set out on page 1 of our letter. The only risk identified to date is the risk of material misstatement due to override of controls. This is a standard risk for all audits, and due to its nature, it can't be rebutted, so it's not an unusual risk in terms of what's been reported. Our planning work will be finalised over the next short while, and we plan to issue a full annual audit plan to yourselves by the 31st of March. Just finally, I'll draw attention to the proposed fee for the 23-24 audit, which can also be found on page 1 of the letter. That's it from me, but happy to take any questions or comments from the committee.
Thanks, Carla. That's great. Is there any questions or comments? No bother. Can I move the report and it be noted? And can I get a seconder, please? Thank you very much. If we're agreed, then I'll move on to number 6, which is the Clyde Valley Learning Development Project Progress and Activity of Social Care Group, which is pages 21 to 25, and I'll ask Jerry to take that forward. Thanks, Jerry.
Thank you, convener. As I previously noted, that this paper and the following paper, I hope give a good flavour of the level of activity that is going on, particularly within the 2 most active groups within the Clyde Valley Learning Development Group. First of all, I'm going to start with the social care group, and the two kind of main time-consuming and I think we can say most rewarding projects within that have been the ongoing review of the Promoting Positive Behaviour programme, which councillors will recall is one of our flagship programmes, which is owned by the members of the group. And during the past year, we've been working very hard to do a very robust review of this programme. The other item for noting is the kind of breakthrough in another organisation, one of the member organisations who wasn't one of the original founders, taking up use of the programme. And that, in this instance, it was Orkney Islands Council, which I think you'll find if we could have picked a more difficult and challenging place to start, I really don't know how. I'll go through some of the detail of that later in the project, in the paper. But first of all, to look back on the review, on the background page in sections 3, you'll see that the Clyde Valley Group has been using promoting positive behaviour since the first pilot programme in 2013. So it's been there for a little while now, but we always felt we shouldn't be complacent about it. As everything changes all around us, policy changes, attitudes change, there are new initiatives and strategies. We really need to be very confident that PPB is still fit for purpose in that context. And such programmes, the current very kind of wide-ranging strategy on trauma-informed practice is very fundamental to that. Similarly, there's a document on the promise that's currently being circulated, which is a well-respected approach to looking at children's care with a general aim to avoid physical intervention, physical holds, etc., for children in the longer term. And this is a shared ideal that the philosophy of PPB agrees with. So we took both of these and other programmes such as stress and distress and other programmes used within educational social care contexts to ensure that we have something that continues to have a relevance and be appropriate to these newer programmes and initiatives. So one of the big challenges has been to proof the language that is used to ensure that there's a consistency there, so that for the practitioners who are using the programme aren't confused or find contradictory statements within our programme relative to the other programmes that are out there. So you can imagine that was quite a long and far-reaching challenge for the review groups, and in one sense, it might sound like semantics. In another sense, it's fair to say that we need to be very cautious about that it doesn't lead to confusion or contradictory activities, because the stakes are high in this situation. The whole principle of PPB is to look at the behaviours to avoid any possible physical intervention or anybody being put in a situation of risk. However, it's a realistic situation to accept that there are sometimes situations where a situation will arise, and we need to make sure that people in the practitioner's world are set and are capable and given a fair chance to act appropriately in those circumstances. So that's really what's behind it all, and why we need to be very robust about our decisions and the review. So a lot has been spent on looking at that language to make sure that the trauma-informed agenda is consistent with that, and we are confident that and for the most part, that as it says in 4.5 that this was actually intrinsic in how we set out the programme in the first instance. So we're fairly confident of that. And with regard to the promise, the number of incidents, violent incidents, that are now taking place across all the councils who use PPB is very, very much smaller than it's been over the years. And we believe that a lot of that's attributable to the fact that the behaviours are being intercepted at the earliest point, and seeing the possibility of something happening is being tailed off by use of the programme's philosophy. It's actually very, very rare now to use a physical hold in the care context at all, and that is exactly what we were aiming for with the PPB programme. So I think we've come out of this feeling a lot more confident that the programme is still fit for purpose and it does take on board these philosophies. And it's with that intent that we now continue to review the programme on an ongoing basis. We believe it's not appropriate to do a snapshot in time, but to keep this as a rolling review because of the changes that occur. And we'll continue to do that on at least an annual basis as we move forward. The sign off on the changes to the content will take place at a meeting on the 29th of February with the Strategic Governance Group, at which point we'll have input from some of the practitioners from Trauma Informed, from the practice, and some of the health experts as well. So we're going to be sharing that with a wider audience and asking for their input and their comments as well. So I think it shows, I hope it demonstrates to the committee that it's a very robust review, and it gives us a lot of confidence as we move forward. So moving on to the section 5 of the report, paragraph 5, we've had over the years a number of inquiries from councils both within the Clyde Valley Group and also just other organisations who have asked about PPB, promoting positive behaviour, and whether they could use it in their own organisations. And it is limited to the Clyde Valley Group who own the programme. However, it is something that we could share with other members within the group. And we've had inquiries over the piece from 4 or 5 different councils, but it's never come to fruition, partly because of what happened over COVID. But Orkney Council approached us at the beginning of 2023, Orkney Islands Council, and they were very keen to take it forward. And they wanted to do this across all their services, both in education and in social work, social care. So we undertook all the arrangements to make that happen. In section 5.3, you'll see where this was approved by the Strategic Governance Group. And the bullet points there cover all the key aspects that they need to demonstrate their commitment to this. So such things as the letter of licence being signed off by their senior officers, that they would set in place their own local governance that would take care of the day-to-day running of the programme and ensure that we stick to the principles of the programme within Orkney. They would need to produce information about their pilot programme for the rollout and also the longer term implementation, and that would be supported by members of the Clyde Valley Learning Development Group. So that all took place and was approved on the 16th of May. We then set in motion basically a request to all our members to say who would be willing to offer trainers to travel to Orkney. We looked at both options, whether Orkney people would come here or whether it would make more sense to go the other way around. And it made more economic sense to go the other way around. And Orkney agreed to cover all the expenses to be involved in that. So in short order, we managed to get something arranged. It took place on the 12th of June. 2 trainers from Inverclyde Council and took the training on board there, and they travelled up to Orkney at just about the busiest time of the year. It's the middle of, I now can tell you that that's the middle of the tourist season, and where there are a huge number of cruise ships arrive in Orkney, believe it or not. And the numbers I got, well, the population of Orkney literally doubles during that period. So there was a lot of logistical issues about trying to get accommodation, etc., etc. Anyway, long story short, it was delivered very successfully, very good evaluation and feedback, and that was for the Children's Services training. And sorry, I beg your pardon. Yeah, that's right. The Children's Services training, and then again at the end of the summer in October, 2 trainers from South Lanarkshire Council that repeated the process, but this time for adult services. So it's now up and running. They've identified trainers who attended the course now who will become their trainers, and they will attend a train the trainer session once taking place in March for the children's services, and we're looking to do some more. They'll get 2 more places for the adult services as well coming up. So that's been supported by Renfrewshire Council, and I think it just really gives a great illustration of each of the different councils stepping up and how much the ownership is really important to everyone. I've got very good feedback of the way that both the courses ran, and we're very confident that the Orkney Islands Council are taking their governance responsibilities very seriously, and I have regular meetings with representatives of Orkney since then, and the senior manager who chairs that group is now on the strategic governance group as well, so therefore can attend the wider group that everyone else attends to. So both significant tasks. I hope the committee agrees with me that this is it's a real feather in the cap to be able to move this on to another council and to see that they recognise the benefits as well, and especially given some of the logistics that we faced in taking this forward. I think it's also a good example of how a programme like PPB is good for both building capacity, giving councils like Orkney and the islands communities to be self-sufficient, and also it's economically sensible as well. It saves them huge amounts of money relative to buying courses like that in. So I'd ask the committee to note the contents of this report, and I'm happy to take any questions that you may have.
Thanks, Jerry. That was really interesting. It's really interesting to hear that it's been continued on to another council. So that's really positive, even if it was as far away as Orkney. But but the people that went were quite interested in going anyway. So
absolutely, yeah.
Brilliant. Is there any questions for Jerry? No, it's a really good and comprehensive report. So I don't think that you've left much to be asked. Thank you very much for that. It's really interesting to hear the stuff that's going on. Can I ask for this report to be noted and a seconder, please? Thank you very much, Francesca. And we will agree to note the report. So moving on to agenda item number 7, which is the Clyde Valley Learning Development Project Progress and Activity of the e-learning group, which is pages 27 to 30. And that's Jerry again. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. A similar report to the previous one, and again to highlight the work that's going on within another one of our most active groups. The e-learning group was set up right from the very beginning, with the objective of trying to provide a shared forum for learning development, to look at the use of the learning management system platform, problem solving, shared content, but also to develop our own skills. And we've been very active with this group. I have to say, since lockdown and the nature of the geography of the membership, we've had significantly improved attendance, whereas it tended to be the West of Scotland councils, for obvious reasons, when it was face-to-face meetings. We're getting between 15 and 18 people attending every meeting that takes place on a 6-weekly cycle. And it's rewarding from my perspective to see the enthusiasm of people within the group, and I can say that in all honesty. We really don't struggle to get people to put their hands up to volunteer to take some of the activities on. So what we did at the start of the year last year was we put a consultation document out and I asked a series of questions about people's perspective of the group, what they thought went well, what they thought could be improved, what they would like to see happen, and what areas they'd like to cover. And I also asked them what they could bring to the group. And the feedback we got, which is itemised in section paragraph 4 of this report, was that there was a keen desire to maintain the development agenda. In other words, we've got a lot of expertise in that group, and we wanted to make sure that people would still be able to develop new skills and techniques, or understand or hear about new ideas or products, that some of the councils are using so that they can take advantage of that. So we set out that development agenda and arranged to have presentations from within the group where possible. The other two areas that came out were a very high interest in looking at mandatory training online. It's an area where all the councils have. We do a lot of mandatory training online. It's reported on. It's very effective way of delivering mandatory training, and it's also it allows for good reporting so that in the event of anything happening, for example, a health and safety issue or an investigation, an external investigation, the learning development records are there and can be tracked. So we can look at who and when that all this took place. However, we have the difficulty that mandatory training can become enormously time consuming. And we find that an awful lot of our subject matter experts and the sponsors of the people writing the L&D, asking for the learning development programs to be written, are all asking for it to be mandatory. So we get to the situation where people have got so many other tasks with their day-to-day jobs, and they've got mandatory training as well as job-specific training to deal with. It can get to the point that it's so overwhelming that, in fact, it's counterproductive, and we don't actually get people to complete the training. So we thought we could look into whether we could do some analysis on this and maybe come up with some kind of guideline or approach which could be adopted within each council, which would help to address this. And that was really the purpose behind that suggestion. The other one was to look at, which is what I would call a perennial issue for all our councils, which is engaging with the hard-to-reach members of staff, groups of employees, and the digitally excluded. So, as you can imagine, that's a huge area for all of us. It became particularly clear over the lockdown period that whenever all the services moving on to online, then how do we address the fact that that's not necessarily everyone's preferred way of working, or they might even be unable to either use or comfortably get online to be able to get the learning that they need. This is something that's always been discussed over the years that we've been working together, but this time round we decided to do a bit more analysis on it, see if we could come up with some suggestions and perhaps help each other make some inroads to dealing with those areas. So a bit more detail then on that. In section 4.2, I've listed the different presentations that took place. So we had 6 different presentations on the development side of things, and you'll see from that once again we've got a great cross section: Renfrewshire, Perth and Kinross, North Lanarkshire, South Lanarkshire, Scottish Borders, and once again Renfrewshire. And we also had input from our key supplier of the learning management system that the majority of councils use, which is Brightwave Capita. So of all the meetings we had up 7 different presentations, and a lot of good discussion within the group. Sometimes it was looking at just specific products that people were using to give people an insight where they might want to purchase those. Other times it was very broad areas like the use of artificial intelligence in learning and development production, which is everywhere, as we know. And we really scraped the surface with that. So it's something we're going to come back to. Like everything else we do, it's a growing area, the use of artificial intelligence, and we need to get ourselves on top of it to make sure that we can take advantage of those situations. When we came to the sections of separating into work groups, we had two volunteers, one from Clackmannanshire Council to lead the group on mandatory training, and one from Renfrewshire to look at the digital exclusion and hard to reach groups. And we pulled together 2 subgroups from within the group to do a lot of that development work. So under 4.5, there you can see that the process that we undertook. We carried out a survey to get a position statement from each council, collated the results looking for commonality. We did some look at the content analysis to see whether we could actually share the content rather than developing it all separately. And basically trying to come up with something that would give us a guidance framework at the end. And we're at the point of actually finally just producing that now. We've collated everything and I'd hope to have that published within the next month. The key to that is what happens to that guidance, that it's adopted within the councils at a level that is appropriate for decision makers, and that we address those difficulties with overloading people with too much mandatory training and yet still meeting our objectives. So it's not without its challenges, but we've got some good guidelines I would hope could give some insight for people to take this forward. In section 4.5.1, the hard to reach groups, again, started with benchmarking and looking at what kind of issues are causing the problems. There's been a very recent piece of work, as recently as last week, completed that indicates that in one particular council, 40% of the staff either have no email address or are using a personal email address in order to access their services. So, that's a big number, and it means that we've still got work to do in making sure that that we can still find ways of reaching these people if that's not their preferred way of working, or if they just simply don't have access. So we're looking at that. We're actually trying to get more and more data on that from all the councils to see if that's a replicated figure or whether that's specific to one council. We're trying to look at what the barriers are and where they've been successfully overcome, if they have at all. And we're building case studies on that to try and kind of share those case studies so that other councils can say, this is what we did, this worked for us, this is something that's worth trying. We're also looking at a desktop research in terms of other organisations and government organisations, SCVO, the Scottish Council for Voluntary Organisations, Scottish Government, UK legislation and standards for accessibility, and we're really building a background to what we can look at there for what other organisations recommend or approach that we could take to try and overcome these issues. The accessibility side takes us into about people who maybe have difficulty using online services, and it's about building that into all the content we develop as we move forward. We've always done it to a degree, but we need to make sure that we're still sticking with the legislation and staying on top of things. And as software tools become more sophisticated, there's actually a lot more scope for meeting accessibility standards to the best use for our service users, our learners. So again, huge amount of work. We've split into different subgroups to do that. We're now at the point of coming back together. Our intention is to produce a generic paper that could be, again, present our findings to each of the councils, including the case studies and recommendations for ways that this could be taken forward. I think there's a business case underpinning it all, which is, can we afford not to do this? Because obviously this is about delivering our services and providing the training and learning development required to be able to deliver them. So again, a huge amount of work. I'd have to say that, and as I've mentioned in 4.6, this is not the sort of piece of work that comes up with a silver bullet. It's a combination of lots of different approaches that can make inroads to these numbers. But that the complexity of it doesn't justify us not doing it. So that's why we're really going out of our way to try and find as broad a set of solutions as possible. So I hope the committee will agree that once again, there's been a lot of very positive work. I think the takeaways for me are very much that we're getting the great numbers of people attending. That a good example of why this matters to some of the councils is that if you take Angus Council as an example, they don't use the same platform anymore, so they don't get the procurement benefits that they have previously got from being members of the group. They also aren't in the social care group because they aren't full members, and yet they continue to see the benefits of joining because they specifically see it coming through the e-learning group. So it's a good example, I think, of it being a very active agenda that we work hard to keep happening. And I think it's a tribute to the fact that after all these years, we've still got that commitment from the rest of the members. So I hope the committee were happy to note the contents of this report, and I'm happy to take any more questions that may come from you all.
Thanks very much, Jerry. Yeah, that was also a really interesting paper, and it's really good to see what's happening, how positive things are, and how much the other councils do benefit and do see it as a benefit, which is really promising. Is there any other questions, MD Scott? No bother. Can I ask for the report to be noted?
Sorry, can we not?
Oh, sorry,
Councillor Anderson,
sorry, you sneaked in there.
Sorry, I just wanted to echo what you said. I thought both papers were absolutely excellent, and the impact that they're having in different ways. The first one, the promoting positive behaviour and the adoption and the approach that you're using, Jerry, and then the second one about it talks about digital inclusion and all the rest of it. It's real interesting stuff and very positive. Sorry, I've a bit of a cold. So yeah, just want to thank you and echo what Lindsay said there. Great papers, thank you.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that.
Thanks, Andrew. Yeah, I think we all agree that has been really useful. So if I can get a seconder for the noting of the paper. Thank you very much, Francesca. Can we agree the report and move on to agenda item number 8, which is urgent business, to which I have none. And at that, I will ask Stuart to stop recording the meeting. And